Emma collects everything. Her room is bursting with broken toys, clothes that no longer fit, old magazines, and even candy wrappers. Her parents have had enough and ground Emma until she has thrown out the junk. She starts with a box of her old clothes, but when she opens it, she sees two red eyes staring at her amongst the mess. It's a rat! Then more and more red eyes appear. There's a whole pack of rats. Emma screams and runs to her parents, but when she shows them the box, the rats are nowhere to be found. Her parents think she's just trying to get out of throwing things away and make her get back to work. Emma goes to get rid of the magazines she keeps under her bed. When she peeks under, she sees the rats tearing apart her lamp's cord. She screams for her mom and dad, but by the time they get to her room, the rats have run off. Her parents chastise her again for making up a story and say they don't want to hear a peep out of her until the junk is gone. By bedtime, Emma has barely made a dent in her collections. She tries to sleep, but she keeps hearing the click, click, click of the rats scurrying across the floor. She wants to call out to her parents, but she knows they won't believe her. She wants to turn on the lights, but her lamp is destroyed. And she doesn't dare try and cross the floor to the light switch, not with the rats running everywhere. The worst part comes in the morning. When Emma's alarm goes off after a sleepless night, she gets out of bed and sees, written on the ground in old candy wrappers and pieces of broken toys, the words, "Get out." Emma screams. Her parents come running in, but when they see the writing, they just get mad at Emma. They tell her that her prank has gone on long enough, and if her stuff isn't gone by the end of the day, she's in big trouble. As soon as they leave, the rats crawl out from underneath boxes and stacks all over her bedroom. Emma jumps up on her bed and desperately asks the rats what they want. The rats instantly begin to scurry around, moving bits and pieces to spell out, "Your home." Emma asks what happened to their home, and the rats write, "We burnt it down." Then they continue to furiously move things around, spelling out a horrifying story for Emma to read. They were once normal rats until they were brought to the government lab, not too far from Emma's house. There, they were painfully experimented on to make them smarter, but the experiments worked unexpectedly well, and the rats became smarter than the scientists. The rats grew angry over being tested on. They burnt down the lab and set out to look for a new place where they could be alone. The rats finished their story by spelling out, "Leave our new home." "No!" cries Emma. The rats briefly stare at her before spelling out, "Then it burns," and scurry out the door. Emma hears her mother scream as the rats enter the kitchen. She rushes in to see the rats gnawing at any wire or tubing they can find, including the stove's gas line. Her mother is standing on a chair in fear, but Emma grabs her arm and pulls her to the door. Her dad runs in to shoo the rats away, but Emma grabs him with her other hand and pulls them both outside. As soon as they are outside, there's a huge boom, and the house goes up in flames. Later, the fire inspector says the fire was caused by a gas leak and faulty wiring. But Emma and her parents know the truth. It was the rats. They moved to a new home on the other side of town, and now Emma always makes sure to throw out things she doesn't need. Daniel and his cousin Gia are about to play Ancient Quest, their favorite board game. As he sets up the game pieces, Daniel asks Gia about the order they'll play in. She says they can decide in a minute after she grabs some snacks, but Daniel insists that they decide on the order now. Daniel offers for her to go first and for him to go second. Gia agrees and heads to the kitchen. While she's out of the room, Daniel reorders the cards that go with the game. He puts all the best cards second. Then, Daniel chooses his favorite game piece, a tiny figurine of an old wizard, Father Time. Gia sits back down and they start the game. She goes first and draws a bad card. She shrugs it off. It's only the beginning of the game. Then Daniel draws his card. It's a good one. It takes his game piece, Father Time, way ahead of Gia's. On the next turn, the same thing happens. Gia draws a bad card, and then Daniel gets a good one. When the same exact thing happens on the third turn, Gia says she's changed her mind and actually wants to go second. Daniel panics. He doesn't want Gia to know he's rigged the game, but he also can't bear to lose. Daniel hates losing. He has to win, always, no matter what it takes. Daniel tells her she can't go second. They've already started playing, and they decided on the order fair and square. Gia looks at Daniel suspiciously, then down at the pile of cards. When she accuses Daniel of cheating, he denies it. Gia asks him to prove it. The only option is to give Gia her way, because that's the thing about Daniel. He hates losing at anything, even an argument. They continue the game with a new turn order. Gia, now going second, draws good cards, and Daniel, going first, draws bad ones. It's not long before Gia wins. Daniel slams his fist down on the game board in anger and demands a do-over, but Gia refuses. She knows he ordered the cards this way on purpose. She's not going to play again with a cheater who is now also the loser of the game. This is too much for Daniel. He's not a loser, he's a winner. He grabs Father Time and yells, "One more game!" The game piece in his hand starts to flicker with heat. Then, Daniel hears something. He looks down at Father Time. It seems like this game piece is whispering something to him. But that's the last thing he sees before... Daniel and his cousin Gia are about to play Ancient Quest, their favorite board game. Gia gets up to go to the kitchen. Daniel reorders the cards. They start the game. The first 3 turns go just the way they did before. But this time, on the 4th turn, Gia doesn't suspect anything at all. They keep playing, and Daniel wins. Just as he's about to celebrate, the game piece in his hand grows hot again. And then, the game board snaps back to the beginning of the game. Gia gets up to go to the kitchen. Daniel reorders the cards. They start the game. Daniel wins this round too, but right as he does, it's back to the beginning of the game. And over and over and over again. Daniel keeps winning, and winning, and winning. Eventually, he gets bored. In the middle of what must be their 20th game, he asks Gia if they can take a break. But she can't seem to hear him. She just takes her turn and keeps playing. Daniel tries to not take his next turn, but out of his control, his hand chooses a card and moves Father Time across the board. He's hot to the touch again. "One more game," whispers a faint voice, coming from the direction of the board game. But it's not one more game. It's many more games. Many, many more games. And Daniel wins every single one of them. He can't seem to stop playing, no matter what he does. Daniel loses track of time. The game resets, as usual. Gia goes to the kitchen, as usual. Daniel starts reordering the cards, as usual. And then, Daniel has an idea. He knows what he has to do. As painful as it is, Daniel orders the cards with all of the bad ones for his turn and all the good ones for Gia's. They start the game. Gia picks a good card. Daniel picks a bad one. Gia picks another good card. Daniel picks another bad one. Father Time grows colder in Daniel's hand each turn. When Gia wins the game board does not reset. Instead, Daniel hears himself yelling, "One more game!" but in an old man's voice. Daniel rushes to the mirror in the entryway. In the reflection, he sees an old man, as old as Father Time. The house is all set up for Stephanie's birthday party. Her aunts, uncles, cousins, and all her friends are on their way. The part of her birthday Stephanie is really looking forward to is the presents. She gave everyone a detailed birthday list weeks ago. An electric scooter, a 3-story dollhouse, a fancy backpack. and those are just a few of her many requests. The guests start to stream in. They all hand Stephanie their shiny, perfectly wrapped presents. By the time everyone has arrived, Stephanie has counted over 200 presents. She looks at all of them sitting in the living room. But is the living room really the best place for them, where anyone can touch them? Stephanie puts all of the presents in her room, just to be safe. As soon as she's finished, her best friend Ruby finds her and pulls her into a game of tag. Stephanie's having fun, but the presents in her bedroom are what's really on her mind. As soon as her friends take a water break, Stephanie quietly sneaks back to her room. Opening just one present early couldn't hurt. Very slowly, Stephanie pulls back the wrapping paper on one of her gifts, savoring every moment. Her heart drops. The present underneath is just an old music box with a little dancer inside. That definitely wasn't on her list. Maybe she could open just one more present, just to make sure there's at least one good one. She opens another present, less carefully this time. It's a book she's never heard of. Stephanie rips the paper off the rest of the gifts one by one until they're all open. She's devastated. No one gave her anything from her list. But then she hears a little whisper. She can't make out what it's saying or where it's coming from. Confused, Stephanie follows the sound to the little dancer in the music box. Stephanie freezes. The dancer can't be talking. She's made of wood. Stephanie inspects the music box and hears the dancer say, "With a little magic, I can transform a bad gift into something good." Stephanie's disbelief melts away with the promise of better gifts. "You will know what I will take from you by solving this riddle. Every time I use my magic, I must take something you have, but were never bought, that you know, but were never taught. Do you know what I will take?" Stephanie rolls her eyes. She hates riddles. And if it wasn't bought, it's probably not a present. And if it's not a present, Stephanie's fine with losing it. "Change this gift," Stephanie demands. The dancer spins, and the book next to Stephanie becomes an electric scooter. Stephanie looks around her room. It doesn't even seem like the dancer took anything. Bursting into the living room, Stephanie rushes to find Ruby to show her the new scooter. But Stephanie can't find her anywhere. It doesn't take long for Stephanie to forget about Ruby and zip around the backyard showing off her scooter to everyone else. It's just as much fun as Stephanie thought it would be. But after a while, her mind wanders back to the presents sitting in her bedroom. Stephanie slips away from the group again and asks the dancer to transform one more present. The dancer starts to say something. Stephanie cuts her off. "Just change it." The dancer does. The wood block Stephanie's aunt gave her becomes a 3-story dollhouse. Thrilled and satisfied, Stephanie decides to go back to the party, but she instantly abandons the idea with the urge to change more gifts. Almost in a trance, Stephanie asks the dancer to transform gift after gift, never letting the dancer speak in between. Finally, every gift has been turned into something new. Stephanie sighs, then smiles. She has everything she wanted. "Now, I have to tell you the answer to the riddle," the dancer whispers. "A loved one is something you have, but were never bought. Something you know, but were never taught." "A loved one?" Stephanie asks. As she looks around at the hundreds of transformed gifts, she notices that the once loud party noise is now silent. Stephanie slowly approaches the party. She sees the rest of the house is completely empty. All that is left of her friends and family are their clothes lying in little piles of dust. Cole steps foot onto Camp Blue Lake for the first time in a whole year and soaks in the familiar pine smell. At school, Cole is a normal kid, but at camp, he's a hero. He's one of the bravest kids in his cabin group. Last year, he jumped into the lake from the tallest rock at the whole camp. As the oldest kids at camp, Cole and his friends claim their rightful place in the front row of the opening assembly. They're so busy chattering amongst themselves, they almost don't hear the camp director's warning about the lake. Due to reports of unusual biological activity, there will be no going in the lake this year. The boys are devastated. What is Camp Blue Lake without the lake? That night, Cole and his friends go to their new cabin for the first time, the oldest kids' cabin. As they walk in, Cole exchanges nervous looks with some of the other boys. They all remember the oldest kids last year talking about hearing strange noises in this cabin and waking up to the floor soaking wet with freezing water. One boy reminds them all that the oldest kids last year probably made up those stories to scare them. They shouldn't be babies and fall for it. The group all agrees. But then, their eyes land on the creaky bed, all the way at the back of the cabin, closest to the lake and the drippy old bathroom. Drip, drip, drip. No one wants to admit they don't want to sleep there. Cole breaks the silence and confidently declares that he'll take the creaky old bed, because he's not a baby. Cole's friends look at him with awe. He takes it a step further. He announces that tomorrow he's going to sneak off and go in the lake. He's not scared, and the camp director can't tell him what to do. The boys all cheer. Cole will go down in camp history for this. But after lights out, everything changes. Cole doesn't feel so brave anymore. It's completely dark and totally silent, except for the dripping from the bathroom. Drip, drip, drip. Soon, Cole can tell he's the only one still awake. He peeks outside at the lake and sees a little ripple in the water. It fills him with fear. He reassures himself that whatever is going on in the lake can't get him in the warm cabin. The next day, every time the boys ask Cole about sneaking into the lake, Cole makes up an excuse to push it off. But the truth is that even just a glance at the lake fills Cole with the same fear from the night before. Right before dinner, the boys confront him. Is he going to go in the lake or not? Cole shakes his head. He's too scared. He doesn't even care about going down in camp history anymore. One boy calls Cole a chicken. Then everyone joins in, dancing around him and making clucking sounds. That night, Cole lays in his creaky old bed, annoyed that he was made fun of. But he still had an uneasy feeling about the dripping sound coming from the bathroom. Drip, drip, drip. Finally, he falls asleep. Splash! The sound wakes Cole up. He touches his face. It's wet. He hears the splashing again. It sounds like it's coming from inside. He timidly peeks into the bathroom and catches a glimpse of something green and shiny, almost like a tail, sliding into the shower drain. Cole is frozen. He could scream, but the other boys would never let him live down being terrified of a bathroom. He'd never be seen as brave Camp Cole again. Instead, Cole curls back up in bed, puts his pillow over his head, and falls back asleep. Splash! But this time much louder. Cole's eyes shoot open. It's too late. He's face to face with a long green creature, not quite a snake, but not quite an eel. It's longer than his whole bed. Before he can scream, it grabs Cole and silently drags him down into the shower drain, through the sewer and out into the pitch-black lake, never to feel dry land again. Cole will go down in camp history after all. Most kids would love to go to a yacht party, but not Marissa. She is being forced to attend her mom's work party on a fancy boat, and it's so boring. There are no other kids at the party. Marissa's wearing a sailor dress that she hates, and the only snacks are gross foods adults like. On top of all that, Marissa's parents volunteered her to walk around and serve the nasty food to everyone. All Marissa wants to do is go hide and listen to music, but she's trapped with these boring old people. Finally, after hearing a loud woman with big yellow earrings blather on for 10 minutes, Marissa decides she's had enough. When no one is looking, she sets down her tray and sneaks inside the boat. Marissa discovers a door marked Captain's Quarters. Finally, some privacy, she thinks. She curls up on the bed, pulls out her phone to listen to some music, and lets her eyes close. A big thwack against the side of the boat wakes up Marissa. How long has she been asleep? She better get back to the party before she gets in trouble. She rushes back up to the deck, only to realize it is completely empty. Everyone has disappeared. Marissa calls for her mom and dad. She searches the yacht, frantically looking for someone, anyone. But she's alone, miles from shore, in the middle of the ocean. Marissa screams for help. Is anyone there? What is she going to do? She can't drive the boat. Tears well up in Marissa's eyes when she starts to hear music. It's the most beautiful song she's ever heard in her life. It sounds like an angel singing. Her eyes glaze over. All of her thoughts and worries melt away, and she's left with only the need to find that song. It's coming from the water. Like a zombie, Marissa heads to the railing. A little voice in the back of her head is telling her to step back, that it's not safe. But that voice is drowned out by the beautiful song. She leans forward even further, and she sees a big yellow earring floating in the water. Marissa is briefly jolted into reality. That's the loud lady's earring. But before she can think too much about it, the song gets louder, and she looks longingly at the water, ready to dive into where the comforting music comes from. All of a sudden, orange flashing lights obscure Marissa's sight, and she is pulled back to reality. She realizes where she's standing and backs up from the edge of the boat. What could she possibly have been thinking? She hears the Coast Guard announce their arrival. They tie up to the yacht and climb in to help her. They tell Marissa that they've been getting calls about abandoned boats. They wrap a blanket around her and bring her onto their boat. As they motor to safety away from the abandoned yacht, one officer jokes that, "The sirens must really be out tonight." "What's a siren?" Marissa asks. He explains that sirens are beautiful mermaid-like creatures from mythology, whose songs would lure sailors into traps. "But they're not real," he says. Just then, out of the corner of her eye, Marissa thinks she sees a beautiful woman, floating in the water. But when she turns to get a better look, all she catches is a glimmering tail diving into the water, as the distant song she heard finally fades away. Grayson is all smiles on the long bus ride back home. His basketball team just demolished their rivals, the Southtown Seagulls, and Grayson had made it a point to embarrass them. He taunted the other team's players, coaches, and home crowd, but he saved his cruelest harassment for their mascot, Sully the Seagull. Every time he got close to Sully, he would accidentally knock him over. Then, he would reach out as if he was going to help him up, before shoving him back down and laughing. But instead of getting angry or fighting back, Sully would just stare at him with his big, lifeless eyes. Dumb mascot. On the bus, Grayson slouches in his seat and starts to doze off like the rest of his teammates, when he's startled awake by a balled-up piece of paper hitting him in the head. He calls out, asking who threw it, but is shushed by the other players trying to sleep. Frustrated, he unwraps the piece of paper. It says, "You won't be laughing anymore." Grayson heads to the back of the bus to find out who is messing with him. As he approaches the last row, he sees a pair of eyes, way too big to be human, reflecting in the darkness. He can almost make out who, or what it is, when, "Hey!" the bus driver yells at him to get back in his seat. When Grayson turns back around, the eyes are gone. Reluctantly, he heads to his seat. His sleepy teammates give him dirty looks as he passes, mad that he woke them up. Back in his seat, Grayson tells himself that the eyes were just a trick of the light, or a reflection, or something. And the message on the paper was just a teammate's prank. With that thought, he starts falling asleep, when another paper ball hits him. He gets up on his seat and yells, but is met by a chorus of teammates telling him to be quiet. Fuming, Grayson unravels the paper. This time it says, "Look in your bag. Ha, ha, ha." With trembling fingers, Grayson opens up his duffel bag to find his sneakers and jersey ripped to shreds. Grayson seethes with fury and sneaks to the back of the bus to find out who did this. There, in the last row, Grayson again sees those two big, reflective eyes. He gets closer and closer and realizes exactly who has been terrorizing him. It's Sully, the seagull. Grayson's jaw drops, and he demands to know what the rival mascot is doing on his team's bus. But Sully just stares at him with his big, empty eyes. Grayson is red with fury and starts threatening it. But the mascot still says nothing. Grayson has had enough. It's time to see who is underneath the costume. He grabs the mascot's head and with a yank, pulls it off. But there is nothing underneath. Grayson stumbles to the ground in horror. The headless mascot gets up and reaches a hand out to Grayson, who is on the verge of tears. He tries to get up and run, but Sully just shoves him back down. Sully offers again to help Grayson up, but when he tries to get up, Sully pushes him down. He hears one of his teammates shout, "Hey look, Grayson is crying!" And everyone starts laughing at him. He begs his teammates to help him, but they just point and laugh as Sully pushes him down, again and again. Suddenly, Grayson wakes up, back in his bus seat, with the rest of the bus sleeping soundly. It was all a dream? He smiles in relief, but that smile disappears when he looks down and sees a crumpled up note on his lap. He opens it. "Be a good sport, or else." He turns and looks to the back of the bus, just in time to see a pair of giant eyes back into the darkness. After that bus ride, Grayson starts showing much better sportsmanship on the court. No matter how bad the other team is, he always treats them with respect. And he never makes fun of the mascot.